What do I, 21F, do after falling in love with another man, 19M, immediately after ending my 9-month relationship with my ex, 27M? Hello, everyone. I am uncertain about the length of this post, but I would like to discuss my current situation and share some rather typical backstory. For the sake of clarity, I will refer to the individual I am presently seeing as Matthew. Current situation. Recently, I ended my relationship with my boyfriend of 9 months for various reasons, including his desire to create content on OnlyFans despite my requests not to, his mention of a foursome with my friend after I expressed my disdain for threesomes, his lack of appreciation for my personality, and more. We belong to a motorcycle group, and we remained in this circle since they are our friends. There were no hard feelings, just an air of awkwardness lingering between us. Following our breakup, I noticed that Matthew was reaching out to me more frequently than before. Several of my male friends were doing the same, so it wasn't entirely surprising. However, I felt a sense of comfort when Matthew messaged me. It was reminiscent of reconnecting with a best friend I hadn't seen in ages. Our conversations intensified, and we eventually began spending time together. As I got to know him better, I found that I truly care for him now. One day, we went for a ride with my motorcycle group. Matthew's bike was not functioning properly, so I offered him a ride on mine while I backpacked him. I had been informed that my ex-boyfriend wouldn't attend due to bronchitis, which is why I thought it was acceptable to backpack Matthew. However, my ex unexpectedly showed up, which created an uncomfortable situation since he had lost his voice and couldn't speak. I felt terrible for starting a relationship with Matthew right after my breakup. Everyone is now aware of our new relationship. Some friends are thrilled for us while others feel discontented. My ex is now spreading the news among my other friends about how I moved on to Matthew, and I can only imagine how he feels. Everything just feels incredibly strange right now. Background: 11 months ago, I purchased a sport bike and joined a motorcycle group. We all went to IHOP together, and that is where I met my ex and Matthew. My ex was seated next to me while Matthew was across the table. I engaged in conversation with my ex the most as he was flirting and being affectionate towards me, but I sensed a strange connection to Matthew despite his quietness. I mistakenly thought that he might be interested in me as well. Before my relationship with my ex became official, I had arranged to meet Matthew and another friend at IHOP, but my friend ended up not coming, leaving just Matthew and me. We spent hours at IHOP, and he made me laugh so hard that I could hardly see. After that encounter, I felt increasingly drawn to him. To clarify, I never had a crush on Matthew. Initially, I wasn't even sure if I viewed him as a friend. He was simply someone with whom I felt at ease, and I disliked the idea of him being out of my life. During my relationship with my ex, he took precedence over everything. He was the only man I was emotionally and physically connected to. We frequently hosted house parties and attended bike and car meets with our friends. While I was eager to see everyone, I felt uneasy whenever Matthew was around. Although I never felt an emotional or physical bond with him, I usually maintained a distance from all men to avoid compromising my loyalty to my ex. I never texted Matthew or met up with him alone. Honestly, I didn't think about him when he wasn't present. However, when he was around, it felt like reuniting with a long-lost best friend, even though I knew very little about him. We never engaged in deeper conversations, as I considered that to be emotionally unfaithful. As time passed, my ex-boyfriend's true character and perspectives on life began to reveal themselves. I felt devastated and found myself overthinking everything, yet I had sensed this was a possibility from the very beginning of our relationship. Coincidentally, during times when I felt particularly down, Matthew would unexpectedly appear, providing a sense of relief. Even though I hardly knew him, I felt an unusual comfort in his presence. For instance, I was crying uncontrollably at 2 a.m. while riding my bike after my boyfriend showed me flirtatious messages from girls on Instagram, and he found them amusing. I struggle with jealousy issues, which I am aware of. I attempted to show confidence while keeping my pain to myself by riding at night for some therapeutic relief. One night, while I was stopped at a traffic light in solitude with no other cars around, Matthew suddenly appeared next to me. I stopped crying and felt remarkably better. He didn't see me tear up. We rode together for about 20 minutes before parting ways. I ended up crying again after he left, but I had felt better during our time together. Once Matthew was gone, my thoughts reverted back to my boyfriend completely. However, that state didn't last. Events unfolded, and I ended things. Mentally, I had already broken up with my ex 5 months prior. It was challenging because I had genuine feelings for him, but he needed someone who aligned more closely with his expectations and desires. Current situation with Matthew, I initially intended to remain single for at least 3 years, focusing on bars, clubs, friends, and so on. After the breakup, I hardly cried, as it felt like we had been apart for a long time already, even though it had only been a month. I sensed no void and was content being single. Various boys, including Matthew, began to message me more frequently. While there was nothing sexual in our interactions, just friendly messages, I sensed a different vibe from Matthew. I felt a distinct comfort in his presence. Our friend group would occasionally gather, and when Matthew showed up, he would try to make me laugh as he always did. However, he began bringing me little gifts like coffee and food. One evening, my friends invited us to play Mario Kart, and afterwards, Matthew and I ended up sharing a couch and cuddling all night. This might sound odd, but it felt just as comforting as cuddling with my mother. On another occasion, I was quite inebriated and unable to contact my sister for a ride home. A friend of mine called Matthew, and he came to pick me up right away. This situation occurred again recently, and although I felt guilty, he assured me he was happy to help. The last time I found myself in this predicament, I didn't want to return home, fearing my father would be disappointed to see me intoxicated, so we opted to get a hotel instead. Even in my drunken state, I fully anticipated being objectified, but on some level, I trusted that he would never treat me that way. If he had, I knew I could never feel the same again. I was aware that others might judge us for what happened, but we did end up being intimate. I expected that he would simply turn away and say goodnight, acting as if nothing had transpired the following morning. Instead, he cuddled with me while we watched Moist Critical, my favorite YouTuber, all night and gently scratched my back. In the morning, he surprised me with Dutch Bros coffee and played his playlist. I know this might sound corny, but it featured my favorite song, The Night We Met. Matthew turned it up slightly when it began to play, and since I hadn't shared any of my preferences with him, I couldn't help but feel as if he was reading my mind. It was drizzling a bit when he dropped me off. He looked at me so calmly and asked if he could see me again. Naturally, I agreed, and we shared a hug. We have been going out more frequently now. When we are on dates or simply hanging out, it feels as though we have been together for years. After one of our outings, he shared the small moments that made him realize he had feelings for me, exactly the moments I've detailed here and more, but that would entail too much typing. I was so relieved to know that I wasn't imagining things. Here we are today, and I have plans to go on another date with him tomorrow. I am just grateful for his presence in my life. I never expected to reach this point. Prior to everything that unfolded, I cared for him in a way that simply wanted him to be happy. I didn't mind if he dated someone else. I just wanted him to be a part of my life. In fact, I even tried to set him up with my sister. I never thought my persistent feelings of attraction would grow to mean anything significant. Major concerns in any case, there are several issues I am currently grappling with. Moving on so swiftly makes me appear rushed and immature, and perhaps it is. I feel guilty that my ex is hurting, but at the same time, I put considerable effort into trying to salvage our relationship, so a part of me is indifferent. Some of my friends support us, while others are understandably disappointed. Initially, I was concerned about what people would think of our relationship, but when I'm with Matthew, those worries fade away. Therefore, I am seeking advice. Where do I go from here? Thank you for taking the time to read this. You are truly exceptional. Story 2. I realized I grew up in chaos, and while I function well, I often lie for attention. Sobering up, I crave stability and authentic connections. I have been contemplating for some time whether I should actually write this. I am uncertain if I am seeking validation, advice, or just someone to reassure me that I am not insane, possibly a personality disorder. I experienced a rather difficult childhood, an emotionally unstable mother, a home filled with tension, and numerous feelings I had to suppress in order to cope. However, I believe I turned out okay, right? I have a job, I function effectively, I laugh, and I have friends. Recently, while scrolling through my old Snapchat memories, I quickly realized that I have been somewhat unstable, dramatic, and generally unhinged throughout my life. I am referring to a gay boy, myself, surrounded primarily by girls in school, making sexual, or extreme, jokes for attention, and generally being very loud and dramatic. It is essential for me to clarify that I always had friends, both boys and girls. I performed fairly well in school, I excelled in sports, and I was generally well liked. I was also a nice friend, I believe, and even though I was both feminine and dramatic, no one was ever truly cruel about it, perhaps because I was regarded as somewhat popular. I was also a top student, but during second grade, I confided in my sister that I wanted to take my own life. I felt unloved and lacked stable figures at home. When I met my mother in the kitchen after my sister informed her of what I had just said, she cried, and they took me to see a therapist. I think I went only twice and then never returned, but how was the therapist supposed to understand my home situation? My mother emotionally abused me and my siblings, mostly me, due to being difficult to handle, but also because I stood up to her, while my father was rather indifferent. In fact, he participated in the abuse, both physically and mentally, but it was always my mother who triggered him. He also left us alone with her for 2 full years while serving in the military in Afghanistan, but I suppose it was his way of escaping the domestic situation. In summary, anger, crying, joy, and laughter were prevalent emotions in our household on a daily basis, and we became accustomed to the rapid mood swings. We all retreated to our rooms, hoping she would not come for us. I am now 25 years old, and despite attempting to seek mental help at 16 when I was in high school, the school nurse refused to refer me to a therapist. I have never seen a psychologist, but I am 99% certain that I have experienced clinical depression 4 to 5 times since graduating high school, lasting for extended periods. I struggle significantly with stability, procrastination, finding meaning and purpose, and self-isolation. I have friends, in fact, many people are fond of me, but over the years, I feel as though my true self has been revealed, and I have become the unstable friend with noticeable issues. I grapple with financial stability, impulsivity, and discipline, and the only reason I have managed to maintain my job, pursue my studies, currently in my final year, and remain somewhat well off is due to luck. A friend helped me secure my job. I always pull myself together before exams, but ultimately I never learn, because there are no consequences and eventually relapse. I honestly doubt my ability to handle working full-time. Additionally, I am somewhat spoiled, as my grandparents assist me financially when necessary, but this has become less frequent. In my early college years, I would get drunk on weekends, but I always experienced days of depression afterward, which led me to stop after one particular incident when I woke up after having sex with an older man and contracted herpes, no joke. I also used to spend excessively and engage in numerous reckless and regrettable behaviors while drunk. However, I have now been sober for nearly 2 years. As a student, I naturally have a lot of free time, but it is frustrating that I squander much of it in bed. For the record, I am social and active now. I also work out and have a part-time job aside from my studies, but I have experienced periods where I mostly confined myself to my bed, and currently, I am using it too much for my liking. I would prefer to sleep there and do nothing else. The most troubling aspect of all this is that over the past year, after going through a breakup, I have come to recognize that I am a rather dramatic person, somewhat of a compulsive liar, and I often act or say outlandish things either for the story or because I am aware it keeps my friends entertained. I also fabricate more amusing narratives and tend to take much of the attention in the room. I feel guilty for relying on my friends for emotional support constantly, yet I sometimes convince myself that I need to find new and better friends. I despise that I think this way, as my friends undoubtedly care about me. I have attempted to become an influencer several times with varying degrees of success. I actually went somewhat viral once, but it always ends in disappointment, and at this point, I feel embarrassed because I feel as if the whole world knows how mentally unstable I am. At least my entire hometown does. These are merely thoughts of shame, yet they continue to haunt me. The only area I feel I have excelled in is fitness, but I primarily engage in it because it has become routine, and if I did not have a reasonably fit body, I believe my self-esteem would be extremely low. I do not feel as though my past defines me either, but it would be nice to achieve some stability in life. I visited my doctor and explained my situation. He has always remarked that I am resourceful, etc. But this time I cried and more honestly shared my issues. Though not everything, and he ended up applying to the public mental health service, essentially, cheaper therapy. I am unsure if I will receive an appointment, and it is not as though my life is falling apart in any significant way. I am stable in many respects, so I understand why they must prioritize individuals in real need. This is also why I feel a bit guilty. Part of me is grateful that I am finally longing for help, but another part feels ashamed to ask for it when I appear stable and smart and resourceful enough to know what is beneficial for me. This also ties back to my concerns about being dramatic, as I wonder why, when I recognize my privilege in life, I cannot simply accept my circumstances and focus on aspects I can genuinely control. While writing this, I just called my sister and realized that I exhibit some narcissistic tendencies. Not to the extent that I believe I qualify as one, but I do possess certain traits. As previously mentioned with my friends, I feel I have high expectations of others and life, yet I am far from being as caring in return. Whether it is listening to someone, aiding them with a task, or dedicating time to spend together, I often take for granted that people and friends typically enjoy my company. Thus, I have never had to exert effort into maintaining friendships because people continually invite me to hang out. This situation puts me in a position where I feel as though I get to choose from the best, which feels revolting to admit, but it is the truth. It is also a quality I loathe about myself, and I have been working on it, yet I still dislike that I think this way. I have also come to realize that I frequently seek emotional support from others, yet I genuinely have very few friends who reach out to me. I do not fully grasp the reason behind this, but I tend to be more of a talker than a listener, and I often complain about life. I know I must initiate changes myself, but at times, I feel so disconnected. I am attempting to meditate daily, write down what I am grateful for, and be productive, but at the end of the day, I consistently feel the urge to call someone to either complain or discuss how life is, which is often negative. My doctor informed me that I am neither borderline nor bipolar, but occasionally I cannot help but think I possess some narcissistic and/or dramatic traits that might align with a personality disorder. I spend time reflecting, and I am both empathetic and sensitive. It is just that at times I feel quite selfish. If you have read this far, thank you. I am uncertain what I aim to achieve by sharing, but after my conversation with my sister, we discussed some fundamental elements of a good life, such as social circles, physical activity, and engaging in meaningful pursuits, where she highlighted that doing good for others typically makes us happier. I am contemplating signing up for some volunteer work, but I am unsure if I will genuinely be capable of doing so. That is how selfish I feel. I do not seek pity. Rather, I desire brutal honesty. What would you do if you were in my situation? Story 3. I am a 20-year-old female, and I am uncomfortable with the way my partner, a 19-year-old female, handles her sexual hyperfixations. Hello, this is my anonymous account because I seek genuine responses regarding an issue that has been troubling me for an extended period. This situation has been persistent since September 2024, and occasionally throughout 2023. I review past conversations where I told her, "You have been absent for a week, and all you did upon your return was express infatuation for another man, mentioning you want to have his children." This leads me to think perhaps it has been a while. However, it felt significantly worse starting in September. She even mentioned once that if the character were real, she would choose him over me, openly admitting she finds him attractive. I expressed that this hurt my feelings, as I did not need to hear that, but she retorted that he is merely a fictional character, making me feel foolish. We have been in a relationship for 2 years, but I am struggling with how she manages her hyperfixation and her sexual discussions about fictional crushes in my presence. At times, she even shares graphic details that make me feel nauseous. I cannot cope with the images these thoughts create, and I do not understand why I need to know such things. From September to February, I have been reiterating the same concerns. I continuously remind her of my boundaries because she keeps revisiting the same topics. I feel uncomfortable with how she discusses these characters in a sexual manner toward me and then denies it. She has lied frequently and sought loopholes in her statements as well. I am someone who cannot tolerate graphic details or the fact that she is begging for intimate encounters, using crude language. She makes moaning sounds in response to the characters' suggestive dialogue and crude humor. She has deceived me into thinking she does not find them sexually appealing while consistently displaying signs of her attraction. This is not merely uncomfortable and distressing. I find it genuinely exhausting, and this behavior makes me feel as though she lacks respect for me. I express that I feel as though I am parenting her, which upset her, leading her to accuse me of being childish. Nevertheless, she claims to love me and apologizes every time before repeating these behaviors. This truly hurts me. Despite her frequent apologies, I see no changes, which makes me more doubtful and insecure, feeling foolish for trusting my vulnerabilities with someone who seems to treat them lightly. However, she insists that it is not the case. I am important to her, and she is sincere in her feelings. But genuinely, how can I trust that when her actions consistently contradict her words? I have not been perfect either. My frustrations have led me to call her names such as idiot, thick, and slow. I have apologized for these remarks, but she still feels hurt by them, and I understand why. I have sent countless paragraphs explaining my perspective, but I struggle to comprehend her thought process. I urge her to be honest, yet she often responds, "Why would I say something you do not want to hear?" Despite being constantly confronted with these issues, I feel as though if I am going to call her out, she should own up to it. Whether I voice my concerns or not, she continues her behavior. For instance, she lied to me about reading erotic material while on a call with me, ignoring my attempts to engage her because she was distracted. I keep repeating myself because she does not listen. After 4 months of neglecting our intimacy, she returns requesting validation and claims she feels aroused out of nowhere, but she had just engaged with erotic content and fantasized about other men. Suddenly, she wants me to validate her feelings and listen to her express her desires, as if I am a passive observer rather than an active participant in our relationship. Several issues that upset me are not just my need to repeat my boundaries. It is also her constant lack of attentiveness, being distracted, and engaging with sexual content while I am present. She does not heed my advice regarding certain friends to avoid. My intuition has always been accurate regarding her friends and acquaintances. Half of them are just after physical relationships, while one has been stalking her. It took her 5 months to take any action. She maintains friendships with them, despite my explanations about their problematic behavior, and yet she frequently complains to me about them, despite my insistence that she should end those friendships. On multiple occasions, she has added me to calls with her friends, expecting me to be comfortable despite my clear discomfort with the situation. I dislike being part of a conversation with people I do not know, especially when there are multiple voices. When I express my desire for quality time and request that she refrain from answering her friends' calls during our time together, she continues to do so. She questions why I cannot simply converse and claims she is attempting to include me, but I feel ignored when 4 additional voices interrupt my conversation with her. Many of her friends do not respect her relationship status. Numerous individuals flirt with her and make overtly sexual comments while I am literally on the call, which makes being there unbearable for me. I do not doubt her loyalty, but I cannot fathom why I would want to be in such a situation. Moreover, I cannot understand why she continues friendships with people like this. She even attempted to make sexual references involving her fictional crush while I was in the midst of talking to her. When I confronted her about it, she replied that she did not believe I would understand and that I was never meant to find out, despite my efforts to learn Spanish for her. While I cannot speak it, I can understand it. It feels as though she is mocking me, and it makes me feel foolish because I have been right in addressing her behavior all along. I confront her regarding her sexual fantasies because the signs are blatant, yet she deflects and remains vague, making me question my perception of reality. Then months later, she admits I was correct from the beginning. I am aware of my insecurities. When we first began dating, I felt content with myself, but everything began to decline in September. I have never felt more repulsed by my body and myself than I do now. In December, she concealed the fact that she felt indifferent toward me, which resulted in her becoming distant and providing me with progressively less attention. She expressed that my frustrations made it difficult for her to reciprocate, and I acknowledged that I was somewhat in the wrong. She did not communicate this to me until I inquired about it, as I often feel like I am constantly asking her for honesty. She stated that she did not want to hurt my feelings by admitting she engaged with erotic material featuring the fictional character she is fixated on. However, I fail to understand how someone can think this way and then turn around and express their arousal to me, as if I am not meant to be a partner. It seems unreasonable to put forth such expectations after being sexually absent for 4 months, then suddenly want something while maintaining that her desire does not stem from me. I cannot help but feel used. It seems she was unaware of her bisexuality, so I had to help her figure out if she was using this as an outlet. She admitted she does not deny her attraction to men, but had previously identified as a lesbian. While I understand that people can have different outlets for their attractions, I am confused because she stated she was on the ace spectrum and had expressed that she found online pornography appalling, which we both agreed upon. I believe erotica and smut fall under the category of pornography, and she used to express disdain for certain genres. I am puzzled why things have changed now. If she ever read romantic fiction, I would be open to reading those portions for her. However, how can I engage in that when her excessive focus on sexual topics, especially concerning male genitalia, makes me uncomfortable? I am not a man. I do not possess those physical features, and I cannot understand why I crave meaningful interactions where she actively listens and engages with me. I cannot even determine if I am overreacting or if I simply need to concentrate on my insecurities and relax. Yet, I have never felt this repulsed by my body until these issues arose. Now, I feel disdain toward sex, my body, and everything, leaving me feeling insignificant and untrusting of her, despite her constant promises of change. She apologizes often and reassures me of her love. I genuinely do not know how to proceed and fear I am making a fuss over trivial matters. Summary: my partner is fixating on fictional characters in a sexual way, making me uncomfortable as I continuously have to restate my boundaries. I am uncertain if these boundaries are justified since it is her hyperfixation, and she claims she merely wants to share her interests. Story 4. I, 23/F, and my boyfriend, 25/M, of over 8 months, were blocked from his TikTok on Valentine's Day because he had another girlfriend. In March of 2024, he used to go live on TikTok before we started our relationship on June 8, 2024, but it was not very frequent. After we got together, he stopped going live for about 3 to 4 months because he claimed he found what he was looking for. He is currently not employed. He was in the army but left because he became tired of it and wanted some time off. It is worth noting that this man had not saved a penny from his job. There were times when he was at home without food, and I had to dip into my savings to send him money for meals. He mentioned wanting to start trading, so I withdrew from my savings to help him purchase a brokerage account. He depleted the account 3 times, and on the 4th occasion, I opted not to give him any more money because he tends to make impulsive decisions and lacks self-trust. In October, he only saw me once since I was saving money to visit my gynecologist after realizing I had missed my period. I managed to save enough funds for an appointment in November, during which I completed several tests. I visited him in late December, as I took a week off from work. Everything seemed fine then. When January arrived, I became frustrated with my job and honestly wanted to be fired from the call center position. A few weeks later, I noticed a significant change in his demeanor towards me. I attempted to brush it off, thinking it was due to stress from his trading losses. I continued to encourage him and expressed my belief in him, assuring him that we could get through this difficult time together. However, by February 2025, he lost his brokerage account because of continued trading losses. He was quite upset, and everything began to shift after a week or two. I reassured him that I was there for him and offered to give him more money for another brokerage account. He insisted he was fine and could resolve his own situation. I disagreed, pointing out that he had not worked since June or July of 2024 and often did not have food to eat. I should also mention that he started going live more frequently in November, which continued until now. A few days before Valentine's Day, things seemed acceptable. Although they were not great, they were bearable. He would frequently call and FaceTime me to see my face and act playfully. However, I soon noticed that he began to act evasive. I found myself begging for his attention, but he would dismiss me, citing that he was stressed and did not need to talk every day. He would send me long messages to show appreciation, and this pattern continued until Valentine's Day. I did not receive any gifts, and while I understood he claimed to be broke, I felt neglected. I said, "It's Valentine's Day and I am your woman, yet you couldn't even FaceTime me to make me feel special." He replied that we did not have to talk every day, which upset me further, and then he ceased messaging me, simply responding with "ah." After that, I went on TikTok to cool down by watching cat videos. As I was about to send him a video, I realized he had blocked me on his account. I reached out to him, asking if he had truly blocked me, to which he confirmed. I did not message him after that because he had blocked me on Valentine's Day. I could not even receive a call from him on that day. Consequently, I did not text him until the following Monday, asking, "Are we finished?" His response was, "Are we?" I expressed uncertainty, but conveyed that I did not appreciate his change in attitude toward me. He stated he was taking a step back to reflect on his life and was giving me space to sort out my own matters. We had a brief conversation, during which we both attempted to work things through. He expressed a desire for everyone to give him a chance to figure out his life. Hearing that, I immediately realized he was indirectly requesting a break in our relationship, but I wanted him to voice it clearly. Eventually, he admitted that he needed a break to sort out his life and asked for some time. I agreed. Later that night, I called him and asked if he intended to come back to me. He replied affirmatively, stating that was the purpose of a break and that we were not single, assuring me he would return before my birthday in May. He also mentioned that I could date if I wanted, but he would not. Alarm bells went off in my mind, but I did not want to jump to conclusions without solid evidence. This conversation occurred last Tuesday, and on Wednesday, I felt hopeful our relationship would emerge stronger. Little did I know that things would drastically change the following Thursday. I accessed his live stream through my brother's account and discovered he was calling another girl baby and his wife, showcasing her to his viewers. She even received moderating privileges in his live chat. I took a screenshot and immediately reached out to ask if he truly betrayed my trust after everything I had done for him. I questioned whether this was the reason he wanted a break, to explore this new connection while leaving the door open to return to me if it failed. He began to gaslight me, making me feel as if I were losing my mind and that I had no understanding of the situation. I was in tears, and his entire demeanor shifted. He explained that he blocked me from his live for a reason, emphasizing that he was trying to use his TikTok live streams to generate income. I realized he was trying to protect my feelings, but due to my instinct that something was wrong, I felt compelled to act. He unfollowed me on Instagram and followed her instead, leaving my anguished voice messages on read. I reached out to his brother and best friend, who both claimed they did not believe he was cheating because he frequently spoke about me and wanted the best for me. I found this unbelievable. They dismissed it as frustration over his current situation. Then, on the night of February 27, 2025, he went live again. One of my closest friends recorded his stream, during which he referred to the girl as his wife and said he needed to log off because he had to talk to her. The girl's name is Ruby, and she responded with, "About time." I am utterly devastated and heartbroken at this moment. I gave this man my all, and this is how he chooses to betray me. This is how he abandons me. I am at a loss for what to do. I genuinely need your assistance. I apologize for the length of this message and the numerous grammatical errors within it. I am teary-eyed as I write this.